And away we go. Listen, there's a huge, I think there's like a couple song and dance numbers in it. A troubadour, mariachi band. There's a huge intro that's being worked on right now that we'll have well in time for the start of the regular season. But, a little abrupt when I just get into your face. I'm very good looking, obviously, in my own mind. But great to see everybody. Welcome to the Monday Night Edge with Dan Leach, powered by my great friends at Bull Rush. We've got a huge show. As always, we are getting ever so closer to the start of the regular season. Think about it like this. A week from Thursday, football that counts. And a week from Friday, more football that counts in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The first Friday game of the opening week. We're playing it in Brazil. It should be a lot of fun. I actually have a play on that game that we're going to get to later in the show. But we can taste it. Obviously, I'm here in Detroit, big Lions guy. The excitement around this Lions team after obviously the rough end of last season at the hands of the Commanders, a game that I was covering at Ford Field. We're fired up here. They're fired up in Green Bay. They're fired up in Pittsburgh. Oh, Aaron Rodgers. They're fired up in Los Angeles for the Rams and the Chargers, even with Stafford's injury. The Chargers looking like a team that I've told you might win the Super Bowl this year, or at least get to it. One of my futures plays. So we are just inching our way. It's a game of inches. Inching our way towards the start of the regular season. This is going to be such a fun show when we actually have Monday Night Football games to preview, plays to give out, same game parlays, looking back at the week that was, injury updates, line movement, and so many things we're going to get to on this show. So welcome one and all. If you've been here before, thanks for being here. If you haven't been, where you been? Maybe you didn't know about it, but we're excited to have you. There's so many things that we're going to be able to cover for you throughout this season, but also the partnership that I've made with Bull Rush is one that I've done a lot of great things in my career. I've seen a lot of different companies, worked for a lot of different companies, done a lot of different kinds of shows, and heard some very, very interesting ideas. It's rare that you find a company, and I got to know the great CEO of this company, Trent, back in last year in New York at a conference I was at, and I actually interviewed Trent, and the bromance was built from that. But hearing about what they wanted to do, I thought was one of the coolest ideas I have ever heard, because obviously gambling is huge in the United States now. It's legal in the majority of states, and hopefully someday it's going to be legal in all 50. Maybe North Dakota never does it. Maybe Idaho's like, you know what, we're just going to focus on potatoes and Vandals football. But most states are legal. Where I'm at in Michigan, obviously, you look at states like Illinois and New York. I mean, most of the states are legal right now. But whether it's legal or not, we all know that people like to, for entertainment purposes or for maybe financial purposes, like to play the ponies, like to gamble on football and play a lot of fantasy football as well. And by the way, coming up in just a little bit, speaking of fantasy football, my man Disco from Big Draft Energy, fantasy stalwart, fantasy expert and genius, he's going to join me. So we know that people are excited about fantasy. And by the way, before I get into this whole little diatribe I have about why I'm so excited to work with Bull Rush, I got to tell you, anyone that drafts before like this coming week, I think you're nuts. I know the preseason has changed. There's only 3 games now. Well, 4 if you're the Lions and the Chargers playing the Hall of Fame game. But I have a friend that drafted 4 weeks ago. What if you took Joe Mixon? What if thank God no one big got hurt, but like, what if Cam Ward got hurt in the first preseason game? Why would you draft any fantasy football team of note, unless you're playing with your Uncle Jed and 2 friends from grade school for no money? Why would you not wait until the absolute end of the preseason and basically towards the end of training camp to make sure that no one of note is getting injured? I just think it's crazy. But anyway, we know that people love fantasy. We know that people love to gamble on the NFL. It's billions of dollars a year are gambled both legally and illegally. For a long time, it was way more illegal than legal, and it's still that way, but it's much better, much more, kind of balanced when it comes to legal gambling on the sport. But what Bull Rush has done in the past is they've done stock trading kind of fantasy contests. And what they're doing now is a survivor contest, which is basically like a fantasy contest for gambling. And I think it's one of the coolest things I've seen. And just want to briefly give you a little preview of this. We're going to talk about it a little later in the show as well. But many of you might be watching for the first time. And who's this great Dan Leach guy? Well, I'm the Squatch. But this is one of the big things that I want to let everyone know about, because maybe people don't know about it. And I'm involved. I'm going to be playing along all year long. for real. And I've told friends about this that are into the NFL, that are into, gambling and think this is just a great idea. So everyone knows what a survivor pool is, or maybe you don't. Most people I would say do. And it's where you pick one team a week, no point spread. Let's say the Ravens are playing the Chargers, and you really think the Ravens are going to win that game. You pick the Ravens, they win, you advance. You can't use that team again the rest of the season. And then whoever's left standing, the survivor, either wins all the money themselves. Sometimes there's, based on the rules of your survivor pool, there might be 7 or 8 people left for $100,000. You split the money. People like chop down the road, whatever. This takes this to another level where every week you get $100,000 in virtual money and you can use it on whatever you want. The minimum is 2 bet slips. So let's say, you just want to do 2 bet slips of all your money, like 50 grand, or 80,000, 20,000, whatever you want. All you got to do is a minimum of 2 bet slips. You go do 150 bet slips, and you can take whatever you want. Point spreads. You can do a 15-game parlay. You can do props with points, point spreads, or totals with props, or just a ton of different props. And if you're in the top 80% that week, you advance to the next week, and there's over $100,000 in prizes. If you get to week 10, that's when you start winning money every week. First place is $500, second is $350, third is $150. And the winner of every week, whether it's week 1, week 5, week 10, all advance automatically to week 20, where you win $200 already. So you've already gotten the entry fee is $100. I'm going to give you a great promo code in a minute to cut that in half. But if you get to week 20, if you get to 20 where all the big money is, you get $200 no matter what. But let's talk about what you would get if you end up winning. First place is $50,000. You could go to space. You could say, Elon Musk, take me to space. Second place, $20,000. Third place, $10,000. Fourth place, $5,000. They pay all the way down. 11th place and on is the $200, but 10th is $1,000. So for $100, you would get into this thing normally. But since you're watching the Monday Night Edge, Dan Leach, powered by Bull Rush, if you go to bullrush.com and enter this pool and you use the promo code EDGE, you get $50 back. So half the cost, which is pretty freaking sweet to me. All you got to do is put that code in for EDGE. You also get a $5 sign-up bonus when you use the code EDGE as well. So all the rules are on the bullrush.com site. I think it's that's why I loved partnering with these guys, because I've been doing different kinds of, NFL and sports gambling shows for years. And it's just such a high concept, such a cool thing, so easy to explain. But I think that a lot of people are really going to enjoy being involved. We're getting a ton of comments, by the way. I fell back on these comments. I always want to make sure the show is super interactive. Let's see what we got here. I know I mentioned my man Disco for Big Draft Energy is coming up. Kobe and the Cattle Dogs they're here for Disco. What about me? You could be here for me too. But Disco is a legend, as I said. I love that this guy's name is Kobe and the Cattle Dogs. Terry Rice has some disco balls. Bones, disco. So I thought coming into this show, I was the guy. I'm sorry, Disco's the guy. So he's bringing in the heat. So very excited to get to him in just a little bit. He just, by the way, we'll talk about this with him for a minute, but I got to give this guy props. I've never met him before until earlier today. Seems like an incredible citizen. He said that he just did a 24-hour stream for charity. Listen, I've done, radiothons before. I've, done physical stuff for charity before, all night DJ parties, that kind of stuff. I never done a 24-hour stream for charity. So mad props to the Disco Duck. That's awesome, man. I mean, I have a lot of respect for that. So we're looking forward to talking to him with some fantasies. Now we are getting to that point where a lot of people are going to be drafting. I know that a friend of mine just drafted. He's out in California, and he said they started their draft at 8 last night, and I think they went till 4 in the morning. Like, who has an 8-hour fantasy football draft? There's only 10 teams. What are they doing? Are they stopping in between each round and having a hoedown? I don't know what the hell's going on there. But I will tell you that I'm just so fired up that we are so close to football. I'm a big Michigan Wolverine fan. Sorry if any Buckeyes are watching. I don't like you either, but all the other peeps can like me. I'm just kidding. I respect all fans. But I'm going to the Michigan home opener. We've had season tickets, luckily, in my family for 70-plus years. So they're playing New Mexico on Saturday night. I will be there for the primetime game. I think it's on NBC. And then Sunday morning, I believe it's 6 a.m. I never have a flight that early. to go to New York to see Oasis. And I know a lot of you are fired up about Oasis touring again. One of my favorite bands, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Going to the U.S. Open for the first time in my life. Excited about that as well. Let me get to a few of the news and notes that have happened throughout the last couple of weeks, and actually some throughout the last couple of minutes. We actually had two things break NFL-wise, one about 5-10 minutes ago and one a couple hours ago. First, the one that literally just broke was Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals. I know that some might not know because I really didn't understand it at first. But there's holdouts, which I think everyone kind of understands. Barry Sanders, famously would hold out for the Lions, wouldn't show up to training camp. That's trying to get more money in his contract. That's a holdout. But now there's hold-ins. So Trey Hendrickson wanted a raise, wanted a new deal, and he reported to training camp, but didn't do anything there. So that's called the hold-in. Well, guess what? The months of talks are over. The hold-in's over. Hendrickson and the Bengals have reached a deal. They reportedly agreed to a $14 million raise on his existing contract. So he's still scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent after this year. But a big deal for Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals. He's one of the best players in football. So important to what they do. So Hendrickson will be resuming activities, I would say, probably tomorrow. Maybe you did it at the end of today. But very important news if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So good stuff for them. Now, this broke a little while before that. The Texans' Joe Mixon is going to start. He's been been away from the team with a foot injury. He's going to start the season on the reservation non-football injury list. I know it might be confusing because he has a foot injury, but that's the way they kind of are able to attribute what someone's situation is. And it means that he can't practice or play till after the team's fourth game. So at least it's going to be 4 games in before Mixon is able to start practicing and then playing for the Texans. That can be a big deal when it comes to fantasy. We'll talk to Disco about that, but also obviously for the Texans run game. But obviously what it gives them the ability to do is have that extra roster spot so they're not down a man. Otherwise, he would just be on the injury list and they'd be down a roster spot on the 53-man roster, which you don't want to do. A couple other things that caught my eye. Shiloh Sanders, of course, Deion Sanders' son, cut from the Bucs, but he did get some good news. He was cut for, the undrafted, rookie was cut from the Bucs. That cost the franchise just $1,052 and $72. But he's going to have a chance to be able to probably be signed off of waivers. This is a kid that has got a tremendous amount of talent, but it really didn't cost the Bucs that much money to cut Shiloh Sanders. And I think that Sanders is going to have a chance to, go somewhere else. He did not have a great situation with the Bucs. He punched Buffalo Bills tight end Zach Davidson right in front of a referee. He was ejected on Saturday night, just hours before his release. So not a good idea. But hopefully he gets another chance. He's obviously an ultra-talented kid, but he has been cut by the Bucs, and it didn't cost him much at all. And we're going to get to this a little bit later, more in depth. But I did want to give my squatches stars of the preseason. There was a lot, but some that really stood out. And obviously in this last game, week 4 of the preseason, I mean, it's really week 3, but week 1 was the Lions and the Chargers. How about Jackson Dart? When it comes to, I think, a rookie that can make a huge difference for a team that, boy, really needs it with the New York Giants. 6-12 for 81 yards and a touchdown, but he has been phenomenal the entire preseason. There's a reason that the Giants fell in love with this kid. I think that, and obviously, you look at what the other quarterbacks they have in their quarterback room. Tommy Danny DeVito isn't the answer. I know he's like beloved in New York, and he actually had a nice game. He had 3 touchdown passes to the Giants, just dismantling of the Patriots 42-10. And then obviously famous Jameis Crablegs Winston is on the team as well. Jackson Dart is going. I liked him in college and Ole Miss. I just love the guy's arm strength. I love his football IQ. He is going to be really good, and the Giants got, I think, very lucky being able to draft Jackson Dart. And listen, let's talk about overall number 1, Cam Ward. Cam Ward had a great preseason. This is a guy that pressure. It happens all the time when you're an overall number 1 pick. Many of them fail. But I was extremely impressed with what Cam Ward was able to do, not just from the notes I read from camp, what he was able to do in the limited action he got in the preseason. He was only 3 of 4 in that win over the Minnesota Vikings, 23-13 in the preseason. But Cam Ward has looked good, And I think that he's only going to continue to get better. And if you're the Tennessee Titans and their fan base, you need a quarterback. And I think Cam Ward is going to be really, really, really good for them. And obviously he has to be. He's the number one pick. And then how about Anthony Richardson? This is a guy that before the Lions obviously realized how great Jared Goff was, because I was on air the night on the Lions flagship that Matt Stafford got traded. And I was a huge Matt Stafford guy, one of the few left in the media in Detroit. But it was time for him to move on. And obviously it helped both teams. He went Super Bowl with the Rams. And obviously Jared Goff, I'm a big poker player. Getting Jared Goff's like a pair of aces. You could go all in. You can trade him. You can fold him. There's all these options you have with Jared Goff if you're the Lions. And obviously it worked out where Jared Goff has become one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But you look at what before they had, you knew that about Jared Goff. Anthony Richardson at Florida, I love the kid. And obviously in a battle with the Colts with Daniel Jones, coming off the injury, he has been really, really, really good. I think that Anthony Richardson has a chance. And before he got hurt last year, looked great. I think he has a chance to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league in the next 2, 3, 4 years. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy. I just think he's dynamic. He can throw the ball all over the field, and he's a gamer. I love the kid. So I think that you look at those guys so far, there's obviously 3 quarterbacks. I got a lot more players we'll get to a little later in the show. But Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, Anthony Richardson, definitely 3 of my stars of the preseason. I'll give you one more quickly. Jaguars kicker Cam Little, it did count, but he hit a 70-yard field goal. Who hits a 70-yard field goal? Obviously, preseason stats don't count, but it happened. It wasn't like if a tree falls and you're not there, does it make a sound in the woods? It happened. It just doesn't count in the official statistics. The record is not 70 yards. But how about Cam Little? He was big, if you know what I mean, on that play. All right, let's take a quick break here. We're going to send you to some info about that survivor pool, and then we're going to talk with the man that everyone's fired up to be here tonight, Disco from Big Draft Energy. James Co said Mrs. Disco equals the GOAT. Thought it was Mr. Disco. I think that's what he meant to say. But take a look at this, and we'll be right back with Disco.
This isn't fantasy football. It's real competition. Welcome to the NFL Survivor Tournament. You versus the field. $100 to enter. $100,000 in total prizes. $50K to the winner. Start each week with a $100K bankroll. Pick games, win returns. Top 80% survive. Bottom 20%, you're out. Bankroll resets weekly. No carryover. 20 weeks, $100K. Will you take home the cash? Sign up, lock in, and let's see if you've got the guts to survive.
And there it is. I hope you do have the guts to survive. We know that Disco has the guts to survive a 24-hour stream. All right, listen, I'm a man. I'm 14 years sober now, Disco, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you. So I'm not doing anything crazy anymore. I'm going to be about 10, 15 Red Bulls. I could stay up 24 hours, but I don't know how you did it.
Honestly, it was pretty freaking easy because the community rallied. During the graveyard shift, we had some of the biggest names in fantasy football, like having the most elite fantasy football discussions I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's awesome.
Like I'm talking about not like 3, 4. We had like 8 people on the panel at all times during the graveyard shift in the dark hours. It was a blessing. I could have kept going and kept talking ball because, to be a fly on the wall and just hear all these incredible conversations and all this incredible insight. It's just, it was one of the coolest experiences. It was a once in a lifetime experience. And I'm super grateful and super blessed for all of it. And just a correction, Mrs. Disco is
Kobe and the Cattle Dogs. I just found that out.
Yeah, Kobe and the Cattle Dogs. Those are our 3 puppies, and that's the YouTube channel for that. But neither here nor there. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Trent and to Bull Rush in general for being our key sponsors for the 24-hour Draftathon. We raised a heck of a lot of money, and none of it would have been possible without the work of Trent and Davin. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart.
Mad respect for that. And listen, next time, now that I know you, if you need me at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. or 5 a.m. Hawaiian time, I'm in. So, by the way, for people that are watching that maybe didn't get a chance to donate, is there a way for them still to be involved? What was that benefiting, by the way?
So all proceeds go to local hospice and palliative care. The story is, and I'll try to keep this short, we lost my father to cancer a few years back, and we recently got monetized on YouTube, and I'm a firm believer that if you get blessed, it doesn't make sense to get blessed and not share your blessing and spread your blessing. And the idea of spreading that was doing a draft-a-thon in honor of my father, because hospice and palliative care, even though, when he was on his deathbed and dying, it's never easy to say goodbye to somebody, but hospice and palliative care makes it easier on the families, and some families can afford that. So we're making sure that we can make a difference and help out with that. If you guys do want to support and you guys still want to donate, there's a GoFundMe, and it's on the Big Draft Energy. So just like you see here, minus the spaces, Big Draft Energy website, bigdraftenergy.com. Everything and anything you guys need to know about it is also there. So shout out to Bull Rush, shout out to the web designer, and it was an incredible event.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your father, but I know that wherever he's at right now, he's smiling down on you and very proud of what you are doing and what all of the community did. So it's awesome to hear that. And just another reason why I might have just met you, but I already love you. That's the way I am. Let's get into some football, because listen, I want you to get some rest. I think you have to do another stream. Do the streams ever stop for Disco?
I mean, at the end of the day, this is crunch time for fantasy football season.
Right.
So I'm chomping at the bit. I know the disco balls need their information. They need to dominate and win their leagues. And I'm here to spread the love of fantasy football, the sports books, the bettings. Like, we're already locked in and loaded for week one as well. We are well prepared, and it's grind time. And I could do this all day, like Captain America would say.
I love it. All right, well, let's talk about all day, because as I mentioned, we are getting towards where it really matters. And now that the preseason is all boring, I mean, obviously you're studying, you're looking at guys, you're looking at depth, you're looking at Cam Ward, people like that. But obviously it's all about the regular season. It's all about drafting, when it comes to fantasy, drafting a team that is going to give you the best chance to embarrass your friends or your father or your wife or whoever it is. When it comes to some things that have really stood out to you so far, Disco, when it comes to looking at getting ready for these drafts, you mentioned, your people, they need this info. They love it. They rely on you for it. If you could give me one or two of the headlines that you feel have come out of this preseason, what would they be from your perspective?
Well, God, how spoiled are we? We get news like Aaron Rodgers landing to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the next day we forget about it. We get news that the Steelers trade for DK Metcalf, and we forget about it. We get news that Jalen Ramsey comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the next day we forget about it. Like, the Pittsburgh Steelers have had an incredible offseason. Everybody and their mother has not acknowledged about all the moves that they've made. They've just acknowledged that, Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in so many years. He's on the hot seat. No, I mean, Jonathan Gannon for the Arizona Cardinals. That guy should be on the freaking hot seat, neither here nor there. I mean, the Jaguars trading up for Travis Hunter was ridiculous. The Commanders snagging Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of fantasy football implications there, especially with Terry McLaurin, like you alluded to earlier. He just re-signed with the Washington Commanders. So is he going to have the same sort of implications in fantasy as he did before, no longer being that target hog that he once was, because now he has to split targets and split opportunities with Jaden Daniels.
Right.
Shador situation's interesting. Cleveland's interesting. Dolphins, that running back situation with Devon Achane, the injury. Titans, Cam Ward, #1 overall pick. The offensive line improvement for Minnesota. Seahawks swapping quarterbacks, and the Las Vegas Raiders bringing in Amari Cooper, who was once free in fantasy football, and now a lot of people haven't done it. I've done over 700 real money drafts this offseason. So when you say, like, you shouldn't have done your fantasy football draft like 4 weeks ago, I've been doing fantasy football.
Oh, no, I know. And by the way, it's people like you that I have no problem with doing that, because I have a friend that has done, like, 700 is insane. I bow down to you. I have a friend that's done 200, and he's like, there's no way I can't. I got to start doing them sometime in July, or else I'm never going to finish.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're well ahead of the curve here, but
Sure.
we just gave you 10 storylines that not a lot of people are talking about, but have major fantasy football implications.
Disco, I asked you for 2. This is how great you are. You gave me 10 in like 15 seconds, which is another reason that I've already fallen in love with you as a friend. Let's talk about rookies. You heard me talk a little earlier about, obviously, Cam Ward looking good and what Jackson Dart might be able to be. But I want to start with this guy, and I'll give you a chance to freestyle and give whoever else you want. I am so high on Amari Hampton. I think he is in such a great situation with Harbaugh and the 3 yards in a cloud of dust with the Chargers. I don't know if you think people are drafting him too high or not, but I love that kid. And we know that you got to obviously be smart when you're drafting rookies in fantasy, guys that make impacts, because sometimes, You might have a rookie that's drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. I remember when I drafted Gronkowski, that's how it worked. And all of a sudden, they're playing like a 1st or 2nd rounder. What do you think about Omarion Hampton? Who are some of the other rookies you love?
I think Omarion Hampton is the perfect marriage of a talented rookie and a scheme. And when you put those two things together, where the scheme and the talent just fits so incredibly in that Greg Roman power run scheme, I don't care about the Rashawn Slater injury. We saw them run and be one of the most efficient teams with a guy whose name is JK. Like, just kidding, my knees are done. I don't have a freaking contract. But now you have an improvement, an improved offensive line, and Omarion Hampton to the moon. I don't think it's what's too early for Omarion Hampton. I don't think there's a such thing. I think he's going to be phenomenal. It's not going to be touchdown dependency as well. Dude is a monster. He's a beast. So I love Omarion Hampton. I love that you brought Omarion Hampton up. And I don't care about the rookie situation. I mean, you look at this new NIL situation with athletes, and like these new NIL versions of athletes, they're all well-fed, like pros. They get that pro treatment. They get the pro training. They get the pro therapy. They're not struggling eating, food coupon food. Like they are well fed. They are well trained. They are top of the line. So these new NIL athletes, they're better than a lot of the vets who've been in the league for 5 years, because they're just so much different. The difference in preparation between the two is obnoxious. A rookie that I'm high on, I love Matthew Golden. Good God Almighty, I love Matthew Golden so much. I think he's going to be everything and then some for the Green Bay Packers. I think he's a yards after the catch savant. Like, he has that special ability to take the rock and do something absolutely incredible. I think he's kind of got that like mix of Xavier Worthy and Tyreek Hill somewhere in the middle, where that 4.29 speed plus just the ball carrier vision when they fabricate, some gadget plays. And we're not just talking about like the deep ball threat. We're talking about yards after the catch savant. So I absolutely love him. And then I've been beating the drum even like long before the rookie draft. Travion Henderson, and yes, I said Henderson, not Henderson, because he is him, the freaking guy. Travion Henderson for the New England Patriots. I'm a diehard Pats fan. I love my Patriots, but I loved Travion Henderson before the landing spot. Dude is he's my favorite running back. I have him outperforming Ashton Genty, not just this year, but the next 5 years. He's going to be a mainstay in the NFL, and you definitely want him in Dynasty. So I just gave you a couple of my favorite guys who I absolutely love and can't leave drafts without.
I love it. And by the way, to your point about the NIL, I mentioned I'm a Wolverine fan. I actually called some of Bryce Underwood's games during his high school career, but got to get to know him when he first signed with Michigan and some tailgates. These kids, you mentioned, these kids are eating. They're gone are the days of my man Chris Webber taking money from Ed Martin in a duffel bag and, in cars getting in accidents with a Team Cleaves for us people that are a little older. Some of these guys in college, as you know, well-known, Disco, are going to do better than guys that get drafted that have long pro careers, because they're going to get $20-30 million sometimes up front, or deals that are back-ended, and they might only last a year or two in the NFL, but they're still going to have all that money. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit that on the head. Like, I was a Canadian college offensive lineman, and I was hungry. Doesn't make sense. An offensive line should not be hungry.
Nope.
But yet I was. And now you look at what the situation's like, and these guys are making more money than most pros. It's beautiful, because, I mean, they deserve it. But it's just a different breed, different kind of animal. The evolution of the college athlete is money does a heck of a lot when you're that young. I'll tell you that for free.
It definitely does. And some people won't be able to handle it, but they're teaching. There's classes now, and a lot of these programs in college are actually doing a lot of education on helping these guys not go bankrupt, not spend all their money. So hopefully they listen to that. Got a few minutes left with my man Disco. Thanks so much again. I know that you just came off that 24-hour stream and you're doing it for such a great cause. So I know you're tired, but like you said, this is the money time for you. And I want to ask you a money question. And by the way, thanks for bringing all these great fans of yours that are making some comments. We'll get to some of those in a minute. But Disco, for those people out there that are about to draft, or maybe already drafted and are going to do another one and don't want to make the same mistakes they feel they made, the first time they drafted recently. I mean, obviously, there's so many ways you can answer this question, but I wanted to just give you a chance to let people out there that are huge fantasy players that want to improve on what they've done in the past and do it the right way this year. Maybe if they did it the wrong way in the past. Is there a couple things that you think are the most important? Because I know there's so many. I mean, we've both been playing fantasy forever. There's not just one or two. But I wondered if you could just give the people, from your incredible wealth of knowledge and all the respect you have, obviously being a fantasy king, what you would say to someone that really is trying to not make mistakes, excuse me, not make mistakes they made in the past, what the focus needs to be when you draft. I mean, obviously you can't break down everything here, but what would you say would be kind of those huge neon lights, bullet points that are important for people that are about to draft to make their team the best it can be this year?
Great question. First, I want to shout out Pete Terranova from the Fantasy Football Face-Off. I think he and Bull Rush will be a beautiful partnership in the future, so you guys should definitely connect 100%. That guy is one of my favorite content creators. Thank you for swinging by, Pete.
Just subscribe.
I'm amazing. So I just want to say that here at Big Draft Energy, we have what's called our 10 draft commandments, and I'll give you the first two, right? Rule number 1, don't be a homer. Because if you draft players from your favorite team and your favorite team sucks and they have a terrible outing, and your fantasy football team sucks and they have a terrible outing, well, that's doubly bad, right? And your spouse, whether you be a female or a male who's competing in fantasy football, they're going to not be able to hear the end of it. It's just going to make, a third miserable experience where your team sucks, your fantasy football team sucks, and now your marriage sucks because everything else sucks. And that's rule number 1. And rule number 2 in the Big Draft Energy 10 draft commandments is do not draft New York Jets quarterbacks, because that's where quarterbacks go to die. And that's it. That's the list. Those are the rules. You don't want to do any of that. But ultimately, I would say know the rules, know the scoring format of your league. Make sure that you've practiced. And I'm like the anti mock drafter. I don't like mock drafts, but mock drafts, if that's your thing, by all means, do what you got to do, boo-boo. Make sure you get your reps. Make sure you know ADP. Make sure you invest in a tier list and a tier guide from a reputable source who gives you tiers, and use tiers over rankings and over ADP, because it is way more. It's proven historically that it is a way more successful way for you to draft. Just find somebody who you think is reputable with football takes that you like. Do not overreact based off of what happened last year, because last year is last year for a reason. Be optimistic and bet like you're right by projecting forward. And I think that's the best kind of fantasy football advice that you could get. Like if you're not comfortable with fantasy football, the best way to get better is to get started.
Beautifully. I listen, like I said, I asked you for 2 things earlier, give me 10 in like a minute. You could not have answered that better, because I think that it's like you said, people will get too bogged down in thinking they got to do too many different things. Sometimes isn't simple just better? And you gave them your great commandments there. And I feel like if they listen to people like you that have been there and done that, you just said you did 700 drafts so far, which I mean, I don't even know how to conceptualize that. I just blown away by that. But I just think that people, it's so much fun to play fantasy. And I feel like if they're listening to people like you, but obviously using their gut and using ways that they've maybe had success in the past, that's what's going to lead you to being a successful fantasy player, and not letting kind of everything get to you and cause too much chaos.
You nailed it on the head, man. Just prepare and prepare a little bit more.
All right, let me get into some of these comments here. Like I said, you're bringing the heat with a ton of your fans today. Brad McCoy 24 wants to know Amari Cooper or Jaden Higgins. Where are you going there?
Jaden Higgins, it's a no-brainer. If you look at Amari Cooper, I think he was great as a round 20 flyer, predominantly in best ball formats, and redraft is tough to project his upside, especially when you look at Pete Carroll's history as a head coach. The schematically wise, we know it's going to be a run-heavy approach, so he's going to be touchdown dependent. We don't like to bet on touchdown dependency. And
Right.
then you look at Houston, right? Like you alluded to earlier prior to me hopping on, the Joe Mixon situation is atrocious, right? And everybody's trying to navigate on who to invest in as a running back there. And the answer is none of them. The answer is invest in the passing game, and the passing game is going to be elite. It's going to have to be, because they have one of the most advantageous schedules when it comes to implied point totals. So that means a lot of points are going to happen. If the running game is not going to happen, Jaden Higgins is a big boy who's going to go up and get it. He's going to get one-on-one coverage, because Nico Collins is going to draw a heck of a lot of coverage on the other side. It's Jaden Higgins 100% of the time, every single time. I hope that answers your question. And like, if you feel free to take your time. I started my stream at 7:05. So as much time as you guys need me here, I'll be here.
Oh yeah, no, you're great. And by the way, our my longtime radio partner Dennis Fithian, one of my favorite guys on earth, he's watching, he's enjoying it. I mentioned earlier Crab Legs, Jameis Winston. I've always called him Crab Legs. He said I loved him, and he also wants to know, should the Lions pick back up Hendon Hooker? Obviously he's kidding. Lions obviously got rid of Hendon Hooker. They're Kyle Allen's the backup. But I do want to ask you a question about the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, for much of the season last year and just overall, he's become one of the best receivers in the league. But towards the end of the year, his production kind of went down. He wasn't the same guy. Obviously, at times he would still flash the brilliance. Is he a guy that people still should consider looking as a top 3 to 5 wide receiver? Or now the fact that Laporta, the tight end, obviously is a big deal, and Jameson Williams getting more snaps and obviously more looks and more routes. Can Amon-Ra St. Brown still be, because for a couple of years he was one of the better receivers in the league, can he still be a top 5 type guy? Or Lions fans or fantasy fans that like Amon-Ra St. Brown maybe drafting him with his ADP a little too high?
You're a Lions fan, eh?
Listen, long suffering. So I'm also a realistic one. I've never seen a Super Bowl, so I'm not expecting to see one yet.
All right, I need you to channel your inner BDE 10 draft commandments here. And rule number 1, remember, don't be a homer, because I've been getting a lot of slack this offseason. And I'm a former offensive lineman. I played offensive line at a very high level here in Canada. I feel like the success for Amon-Ra St. Brown came off of having, David Montgomery on a 3rd and short, David Montgomery on the 4th and short being a formality. And since it was such a formality, they drew so many defenders in the box that he had the opportunity to win one-on-ones, especially in those cheat code targets like the red zone. He finished the season last year. Obviously, he was elite in the receptions, but the 12 touchdowns is what really boosted him up. They don't have that formality anymore. I'll tell you why with David Montgomery. They went from the 2nd best offensive line, according to PFF grades, to the 13th best offensive line, according to PFF grades, because Frank Ragnow is now retired, your center.
Which was a shock.
Your right guard, Kevin Zeitler, he's gone to Tennessee. I know Rutledge is good, but Zeitler is one of those guys who's irreplaceable based off of how he can move people against their will. That's one of my favorite things that he does, and he does it at a very high level. Taylor Decker, your left tackle, is still potentially on the pup. With that being said, those formalities and those chunk plays where they can draw all the defenders, and that's no longer a thing. It's going to be outside zone and explosives for Jahmyr Gibbs, because that's where he's going to be most efficient. David Montgomery's inefficiency is going to reduce the efficiency of Amon-Ra St. Brown as a deep ball threat, because Jared Goff does not have time. When you look at the splits between Jared Goff with decent offensive play and top 10 offensive play versus Jared Goff with and without offensive top 10 offensive line play, the numbers are staggering, and it's really, really bad how different his performances are. You pair that with the fact that, yes, I understand that the concepts are Dan Campbell's, but the scheme and the nuanceable differences that made them such an explosive offense is now the head coach in Chicago and Ben Johnson. You look at the splits of Jared Goff with elite coaching versus Jared Goff without elite play calling and coaching, that's also catastrophic. So I love Sam Laporta, because I feel like he's going to fill in this year and get that Brock Bowers and Jonnu Smith garbage time volume. It's not going to be the touchdown production. I love Jahmyr Gibbs because this guy's lightning in a bottle. He's one of the most explosive players. Jared Goff is going to regress tremendously, and I cannot rationalize drafting Amon-Ra St. Brown as a top 5 wide receiver this year. Give me ascending talents in better situations like Brian Thomas Jr., Nico Collins, Drake London. Give me all of those guys 10 times out of 10, because those guys are going to smash their ADPs significantly, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is not.
Amen. And listen, just so you know, I have the BD commandments, as you mentioned. Is that what they're called again? You said they're the commandments, right?
Yeah, the 10 draft commandments.
Yeah, I wasn't drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I know a lot of people have been asking me, because this production kind of went down. You encapsulated it perfectly, almost like you're covering the lines like I do. Listen, as much as, I'd like to say that Ben Johnson leaving isn't going to be a factor, it's a factor. There's a reason that guy's offense was transcendent. There's a reason the Lions have been as good as they were with Jared Goff. And you look at what he was able to do with Ben Johnson. So I'm 100% with you there. I mean, I think you've got a chance of the offense still with – you got players like Gibbs. You mentioned Laporta won me a lot of money the last couple of years. You've got some talent there, but it's not going to be as good as it was and as smart as it was at times at least for a little while. So great points made there. I did want to ask you, speaking of quarterbacks, I thought you made a very fair point about Jared Goff. Anyone drafting Jared Goff, too high, I think is being silly. But how about where you feel the state of the quarterback position is? Do you think we're going to see a shift in this next couple year period about who the elite QBs are? We all know that Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest ever. Obviously, Joe Burrow with, Jamar Chase and what he was able to do with fantasy and winning people leagues. CJ Stroud, I still am super high on with the Texans. Lamar Jackson, obviously, with his running ability and his, obviously, legs and arms. Do you think we're going to start to see a shift? Because, obviously, not right now, but guys like Jackson Arcam Ward down the road, maybe. But where are you at with the QBs that we've known for years? Like back 10 years ago, it was Russell Wilson. You had to draft him. You had to draft Tom Brady, all those different things. Where are you at with the evolution of where we're at with the stud QBs and how that relates, to fantasy right now?
I feel like overreactions and not paying attention to the scenarios and projecting forward based off of last year, like I alluded to earlier, is a very common trend. And I think it's the most common thing with the quarterback position, because more often than not, every single year, one of those guys who's drafted as a top 5 quarterback, one of those guys who was a top 5 quarterback the year prior, kind of falls off of a cliff. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes last year, we faded Patrick Mahomes. Side note, just going to go on a little tangent. My first year as a content creator was Sam Laporta's rookie season. That May, I said Sam Laporta would be the tight end 1. And we smashed that hit. My community, before they were called the Disco Balls, were actually called the Laporta supporters, for what it's worth. So we're just putting that out there. Last year, we called Jamar Chase no matter what. I didn't care if it was at the 101 or the 108. We were drafting Jamar Chase no matter what. Last year, we said Jaden Daniels would not, this is all in the offseason, would not just be the offensive rookie of the year and a top 5 quarterback in fantasy, but that he would also lead the Washington Commanders to the NFC Championship. Smash that call. We said Brian Thomas Jr. and Drake London would both be top 10 wide receivers. So this year, I'm very
now you're just showing off.
I mean, like, at the end of the day, I think the biggest mistake you can make with the quarterbacks is just reacting based off of last season, right? You 100%. Have to look at the schemes, you have to look at the situations. And I think Patrick Mahomes this year is my QB1, and he's being drafted off the board as a QB6 or 7 sometimes, going later than round 8, than pick 80, sometimes even the 95th pick overall. And I think that's criminal. I think it's criminal that Jordan Love is the QB 18 right now because he was hurt all of last season. But if you look at every explosive passing metric, even though he was hobbled and on one leg after that week 1 injury in Rio against the Philadelphia Eagles, he was still efficient as an explosive passer, and his situation's only gotten better. And he has one of the most reliable run games and the most complete offenses. So, yeah, I mean, I think with the quarterback position, it's safe to bet on Josh Allen as a QB1. It's safe to bet on Jalen Hurts wherever he's going in ADP, because we know that the tush push is still there, and you have his first year as a full-time starter, 10 touchdowns, then 12 touchdowns a year after that, 15 touchdowns the year after that, 14 touchdowns last year, right? The tush push is not banned. Shocker, that offensive line is still the number 1 offensive line in football, and they lost key defenders. Last year, they ran the ball at a historical rate where they ran the ball more than any other team. So Jalen Hurts is like your surefire top 3, top 4 quarterback. Lamar Jackson, somebody I think is going to fall off of a cliff this year in fantasy. Patrick Mahomes is going to be absolutely incredible.
Packers tried their best to get rid of that tush push. It was stupid. I mean, they're a big Lions rival, so I thought it was hilarious when they look silly. All right, before I let you go, I can't thank you enough again. By the way, I want to make sure I give out it's on the screen, but give everyone your socials again. Big Draft Energy obviously is an epic situation. You have a great community, but for those that are maybe joining for the first time, what's the best way they can follow all your stuff?
Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. in the off season on the Big Draft Energy YouTube. You can find us posting constantly with our most advantageous matchups in season on X, and a lot of just crazy hot takes and calls like Afton Chisholm we called early on. Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt we called way before that hit. You can find us on Big Draft Energy pretty much on all socials. We'll be live on the Big Draft Energy YouTube channel shortly after this ends. And thank you once again for having me. Thank you for all the kind words that you said. By far, I'm not where I need to be, but I'm very grateful for this fantastic community and the marriage of both communities coming together, because Disco Ball Nation loves Bull Rush.
It's all true, and I could be happier to have you on. I did want to ask you one more rapid fire before I let you go, because last time I asked for 2, you gave me 10 in a minute, so I know you could do this. Obviously, this is a tough question, and obviously you're going to understand that. But for those out there, it's got to be based on situations and if someone's there or not. But if there were 2 must-haves that you would give out to people right now and 2 must-have sleepers, if they're obviously, once again, it's all based on what kind of league you're in, when you're drafting. But I wanted to give you a chance to let the people know 2 must-haves overall and then 2 must-have sleepers for fantasy.
Must-have sleepers, Demario Douglas from the New England Patriots, and that's not me being a homer. That's addressing the schematic situation.
You better follow the commandments. I'm just kidding.
Hey, man, you look at Josh McDaniels and what he does with that slot back position. You're looking at anywhere between 80 to 120 receptions. Where he's currently being drafted in the 14th round, you're getting a heck of a positive return on investment. You got a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside, definitely a flex. Love Demario Douglas as a sleeper and as a player in general. All this Bill news, and if you're not familiar with Bill, it's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, means that Austin Eckler is being faded at a very rapid rate. No matter what, Austin Eckler is still the constant. He's still the pass-catching upside player there, and he's still the vet in the room. We need adults in the room, and even though I love Bill and I think Bill was a tremendous value before, people are overreacting. So make sure you take Austin Eckler as another sleeper. Must-haves in fantasy football at the wide receiver position, I think, are 2 guys, 3 guys. Okay, Brian Thomas Jr. No matter what. We got Xavier Worthy, who I think is going to break fantasy football this year, and huge. I think his floor is top 10. And I know the difference between floor and season. His floor is top 10. And Matthew Golden, I think Matthew Golden is going to be absolutely special. And there's no reason why a wide receiver 1 in an offense that throws the ball a heck of a lot and very productive and very efficient should be going off the board as a wide receiver 44. So those are my sleepers, my must-haves. And thank you.
No, thank you. It was seriously an honor and pleasure having you on. Thanks again for what you did, for your amazing community to raise money for an amazing cause. I know your father is very, very proud of you, looking down, smiling, and just know how grateful I am to have met you, be part of this with you, and I can't wait to have you on again. Anything you ever need from me, that's the way I am. So keep up the amazing work. You have an incredible community. You brought them all with you today, including Mrs. Disco, who I love. And just thanks for everything you do to help people enjoy life the best they can. It's a very special thing, and I have a lot of gratitude for that, and a lot of I'm in awe of that as well by you as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and it goes the same. If you need anything from me, brother, pleasure meeting you. We're on the same Bull Rush team, and we love Bull Rush. Let's get weird. Thank you so much. If you need anything, you just give me a holler, all right, brother?
You got it. Thanks so much for being here. There he is, Disco, Big Draft Energy. Please follow him. You got to watch this guy. He knows all his stuff. Thanks so much for joining me today. Look forward to having him again as well. He's going to do another stream. He just did 24 hours. Unbelievable. That was phenomenal. Like, one of the things that I've learned throughout my career, because I've hosted all different types of shows, whether it's just a straight football show, whether it's fantasy football show, whether it's, stuff on other sports, that you run into people like Disco there. And sometimes, you can just tell that not only are they really good at what they do, but they really care, and they're just good people. And that was the whole point that I made there, as I handed off and let him get to his stream. And I just really appreciate him being on, because he is doing something. He was raising money to honor his father and all that stuff. Community obviously supported that. But he's helping. Think about all the people that watch his show, that are watching this show, that will tell their friend this, or tell their father this, or tell their sister that, and helping so many people have fun in life, which is what we all need. There's so many bad things that happen. I try never to dwell on them, but there are. The world's a crazy place. Then there's people like Disco. There's people like me, I'd like to think. Or my man Trent Air, my man David Shire, my great producer, that are doing things to help make life better and more fun for us all. And that's something I have undying respect for. So mad respect to Disco. Definitely we'll have him on again. Great community stuff. Let me just catch up on some of these comments. We got a lot of them. But yeah, great stuff by Disco. I really appreciate him and what he does. And obviously people like him, there are not many that are as talented and that really care as much. So I show a lot of respect for people like that. I know that we did have a comment from my man Trent. It was pretty funny, actually. Trent Air, the great Bull Rush aficionado and king of the Wizards, he asked if that we think that they set up Shiloh Sanders because he heard some conspiracy theories saying they set him up to punch the tight end. Listen, I'm all about conspiracy theories. I still want to know who killed Kennedy. Was it aliens? I love that kind of stuff. But if they put all of that into making him punch a Bills tight end, like a meaningless Bills tight end, Zach Davidson, in front of the referee, I would be blown away. But these days, nothing would surprise me. All the reports have come out, and there's the big talk this last week is that a lot of teams or, people, sources through these teams were saying that Shedeur Sanders, the league wanted to send a message that he's not the kind of guy we want to be drafted high. And that's why his draft spot kept falling and falling. I think that's crazy if that's the truth. If there's literally conspiracies being run by the league office, by Goodell or his underlings, whether it's a Sanders thing through his team or through the NFL, whether it's that's Shiloh that is, or whether it's a Shedeur Sanders thing, league wide, where we're going to make sure we don't have people like this that think they're bigger than the game. Let the kid be who he wants. He didn't go out there and kill anybody. He didn't go out there and steal money. He didn't go out there and beat someone up. The guy's got, he's got brashness. He's got some panache, if you will. And it's like people just sometimes don't want to see that from a rookie. Who cares? I thought Disco brought up a great point. I mentioned that I got to know Bryce Underwood, the new Michigan quarterback, just by the way, named the starter officially yesterday. NIL money is changing everything. These guys are basically, making cash, being able to save money, not have to worry about starving. Like, Disco was saying he was a lineman not being able to eat. These guys are being able to do a lot of things that previous, student athletes and then obviously professional athletes were not able to leading into that. So there's a lot of jealousy out there. And we all know that there's a lot of talk about how the owners in sports, especially the NFL, there's a lot of negativity about how they're just kind of, I don't want to say systemic racism in a way, but just being in control of people. A lot of them obviously minorities and coming for not just minorities, but even, white people too, that have come from very poor backgrounds and being in control of that stuff. That's going out the window because these kids, thank God, they should be making money off their name, image, and likeness. I remember as a kid, as a student, living up in Ann Arbor, going to Michigan games then when I was a student, and you'd see like Denard Robinson's jersey in the bookstore. They got $0 for that. The Wolverines in the Big Ten were signing multi-billion-dollar TV deals and, selling T-shirts and jerseys, and the kids made nothing. They deserve to make that money. And it's empowering them. And obviously Deion Sanders, we know his brashness, his son, all the reality shows, it probably upsets people, but it's ridiculous. Let them let them be themselves and stop doing league-wide conspiracies. So Trent, to answer your question, definitely possible, but that'd be nuts. A couple more here. We got a lot from Kobe and the Kettle Dogs, like that. One guy said, obviously I think he was joking, James CO said, got to go. This guy's a Michigan fan, another Greg. I don't know who Greg is. See you guys later. But then later on, he came back. He's fun. Brad McCoy's 24 said, go blue. So go blue to you. Sorry, Universe Galaxy wanted to bring up some topics next time for sure. We always want to be interactive on this show. By the way, I mentioned my man Dennis Fithy and my longtime radio partner, 97 won the ticket here in Detroit and a lot of other things we did. He asked, as kind of as a joke, should we pick up Hendon Hooker, the Lions, who cut him? I thought he was going to be really good. And maybe the Lions, in a nice way, are saying, maybe a change of scenery would be good for him and giving him that chance. It's kind of how they sold him, getting cut for Kyle Allen. I really think he's got, obviously came off that terrible injury that sent him back a year. When he was in Tennessee, he really showed flashes of brilliance. So I hope he hits on somewhere, but I was definitely wrong about him being at least a decent backup for the Lions. Let me get to a couple more here. Then I want to get you some week one lines that I have. We're going to go over a couple of the other futures I have as well. Fantasy Advantage weighing in as well. So appreciate you being there, saying BDE boys are here. Great stuff on the thread today on the chat. We're going to continue to make this show as interactive as possible. All right, couple things I want to do before we get out of here. I mentioned, the stars of the preseason. I talked about Jackson Dart, Cam Little, obviously Anthony Richardson, and Cam Ward. A couple other ones that I liked. Wide receiver, I hate to say it, Packers. Obviously, like you said, you can't be a homer. Matthew Golden. Packers have great fans, by the way. I thought he was really, had moments and a nice 39-yard catch that really kind of showed the incredible talent he has during the preseason. Tariq Owens, by the way, Terrell Owens' son, did score a touchdown in the preseason finale. I think he's got some big upside. Britton Brown for the Bears, the running back, had a 70 rush for 73 yards and a touchdown in the preseason games, while some other backs were sidelined. He had some moments as well. So those were some of the guys that I saw. And you heard Disco mention Travion Henderson. I'm all about him. I think he's going to have a huge year for the Patriots. Dante Thornton Jr. with the Raiders, the wide receiver for the Raiders, very impressive in training camp in the preseason, will have a significant role. Jordan Morgan had a great camp in preseason, the offensive lineman for the Packers. Have strong pass protection at left tackle. And Tyler Shaw for the Saints. This is a second-round guy that could be a starter in week 1. Those were people that I thought made some – there's a lot of players that made impacts, but the ones that I have kind of been tracking the last couple of weeks. All right, so here, let me just give you – we're gonna do this next week too, because obviously it's Labor Day. I'm going to be traveling to New York. I'm going to go over all the plays that I've given out over these last few weeks. I have futures plays. I have rookie of the year plays. I have different, win totals that I like, Super Bowl exact matchups I like. I'm going to give a few about here, but I'm going to do all of those on the show for next week. So please tune into that. And then obviously we're getting to real football the week after. But I do want to start with these. Week 1 NFL lines. Obviously, they've been bettable for a while based on where you live. But I live in Michigan. Obviously, FanDuel, DraftKings, all these sites have had week 1 lines for a while. There are 3 games that I absolutely love. And I talked about one of these teams earlier with Disco, and I talked about it earlier in the show. The Chargers. And he talked about Mahomes. And obviously, Mahomes is still going to be great. But this is a game in São Paulo, Brazil. A Friday night special, if you will. And you can get – so it's a neutral field. It's Jim Harbaugh's second year. We all know how much better Jim Harbaugh teams have been in second years. They won 10 games last year. I think the Chargers, they're one of my, plays for a Super Bowl, at least, appearance, not necessarily to win it, but to at least get there, because we all know how tough it is to get to the Super Bowl. They're getting 3.5. Some books have it 3, but I got it at 3.5. And obviously, I'm going to talk about this a lot on this show. NFL key numbers, 3, 7, 10. Obviously, there's many more, but the main ones are 3 and 7. You want to buy off of that. So I'm not taking 3. I don't want the push. I'm going to buy the 3.5. Or if I like the 3, I'm going to buy it down to 2.5. Because so many times, as you know, if you're an NFL bettor, these lines hit 7. They hit 3. That's the way, these odds makers are good. And obviously those are 7 points for a touchdown, 3 points for a field goal. That's why they're going to hit a lot. Chargers getting 3.5 at the Chiefs. I think you're going to have a huge statement game. Hampton being, Amiri Hampton being one of them. But Justin Herbert, I think that Chargers team is going to come out like gangbusters in Brazil against, the Chiefs, who obviously have been so good for so long with Mahomes. I think they might, win the game outright. But if not, you still get 3 and a hook. I love that for a week 1 line. Also, I'm not sold on the Patriots having a great year. They're going to be better. But I think that the Patriots are still overvalued. They were actually, it was 3. They're playing at home against the Raiders in week 1. It's down to 2.5. But to me, I think it should be less. I think the Raiders are going to come out and win that game outright. I'd buy it to 3.5 just to be safe in case it's close. I just think New England's going to really struggle early on and be better in the latter half of the season. So I like the Raiders getting 3.5 against the Patriots in week 1. And then this is a game that I'm really excited to bet. It's just too many points. Will the Broncos have a better season than the Tennessee Titans with Cam Ward as a rookie? Absolutely. I think the Broncos, as we talked about on the show, are a little overvalued. But I'll tell you right now, the Broncos giving 7.5 points to the overall number 1 pick. It's on the road. It couldn't be a better situation to start the season. You're getting 7.5 of the Titans. They can hang in that game. I think Cam Ward's going to try to make a huge statement in week number 1. I think it's actually better that they're on the road for his first NFL start. There'd be more pressure if it was at home in Tennessee. They're playing against a team that is overvalued to begin with. Yes, Bo Nix and that defense is solid, but I think that that's too many points. That's my favorite play of week 1 so far, the Titans plus 7.5 at the Broncos. So those are 3 that I like. I did want to just give you a couple more that I've given throughout the last couple of weeks. I did talk about Omari Hampton, 8.5 to 9 to 1, rookie of the year. Love that. Perfect situation in LA. Defensive rookie of the year, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is now to 13 to 12 to 1. Still like him. And then MVP, Jaden Daniels, 10 to 1. Saquon Barkley, 60 to 1. There's some plays I gave out earlier as well. and exact Super Bowl matchups. You could bet these at obviously all legal sports books, or maybe even with your friend Louie on the side of the street. Bills and the Commanders to be the exact matchup. That's 41-1. Baltimore and Detroit to be the exact matchup, 28-1. Two other ones that I really like. And I do like these win totals. Bears, they're a very trendy pick to go over with Ben Johnson. They just killed the Bills and embarrassed them in a preseason game. Still the preseason. But I think the Bears under 7.5 is the play. I think they're not going to – that division with the Packers and Lions and Vikings, with J.J. McCarthy now starting for the Vikings and the Lions, obviously, with a ton of talent and Dan Campbell, even without Ben Johnson. I think the under 7.5, which is the other side of the juices on the over, I think that so many experts like that, you want to go against when the public's loving something. To me, I think the Bears under 7.5 is the play. I gave that out a couple weeks ago. And I think Denver is overvalued as well. Denver under 8.5, tough division. That's against many experts too. So those are some of the things I've given out, and we'll have way more over the next couple of weeks as well, and throughout the season, obviously, too. All right. Before we get out of here, I want to thank my man Disco for Bull Rush, all of you for being so interactive and so connected on the chat. We'll continue to make sure that whenever there's comments here, we want you to be fully involved in the show. Actually, here, Cam the Ham really quick. 10-team, 5-point or half-point PPR league. Starters with Lamar, Derrick Henry, Henderson, Pollard, Neighbors, Evans, and Kraft. Bench Swift, Diggs, Drake May with Robinson, Judy, Stevenson, Tank Bigsby. Thoughts on my team? My thoughts are your team's not bad. Not great, not awful, not bad. Cam the Ham, like it. So want to make sure people know we always want to take your comments. Obviously, we had a lot of fun with Disco today. This is a show that's about you as much as it's about me talking to you. We want you to be able to ask anything you want. But once again, thanks again to Disco. Check him out at Big Draft Energy. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Leach GTM on all the different socials. And check out the Survivor Pool that Bull Rush is doing. That's why I'm so excited to be partnered with them. $100,000 in prizes. You're able to be in the top 80%. Each week you advance. If you use the code EDGE when you sign up, you get $50 back on the $100 entry fee. Plus, you get a $5 bonus. So you can't beat that. And if you could get to week 20, if you could win a week or qualify to get to week 20, first place $50,000, second $20,000, third $10,000, fourth $5,000, $2,500 for fifth, $1,000 for sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. And if you just get to week 20, you win $200 anyway. So you already double your money. Actually, you win $150 if you use the code EDGE. So check that out. We will see you next week. Thanks again to Disco. Thanks again to my phenomenal producer, the great Devonshire. And, of course, Trent Aaron, all the great guys, Neil and Bull Rush. But thanks so much to all of you for joining. This is all about you. I love doing shows like this, but you make this worth it each and every week. So keep bringing that energy. We'll be here for you every Monday night. And I can't wait to, in a couple weeks, have a Monday night game to talk about leading into, the end of this show. So we can't wait for that. Until next time, though, Dan Leach saying, keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Until next time, believe in the dream. We'll see you then.
You want a shot at $50,000 in cold, hard cash? Well, Bull Rush just dropped a new sports comp, the NFL Survivor. And the total prize pool, a massive $100,000. First place gets 50 grand, straight up. Think you got the picks to survive 20 weeks? Here's how it works. Start each week with a $100K fantasy bankroll. Make picks using real NFL odds. Place in the top 80% and you survive. Below that, you're out. Your bankroll resets each week, so a bad week doesn't kill your season. Make it to week 20, and you and all the other survivors split the entire $100,000. You want the bag? Prove it. Join NFL Survivor only on Bull Rush.